Today, you get to ride with us through the city of New Orleans.
There's a big old turn in the river, and that's why they called us the Crescent City, because our city is in the shape of a crescent, because the river is as well. 1718, King Louis sends two brothers, Iberville and Bienville, Sieur de Lemoyne. He wants them to put a colony here. So we start off here in 1718, French. Now we're French and Spanish, and we're European. We call everybody Creole, a true Creole. You were born in America. Your parents had to come here on a ship from France or Spain or Africa. All right, so 1763, here we are, we're French and Spanish, and everything's rocking along. Well, ignoring each other all the time, they decide to live apart. The French stay in the French Quarter. Everything's French, money's French, francs, everything. The Americans go here, and they settle in Faubourg Saint-Marie. So what was Canal Street? Canal Street was neutral. It didn't belong to anyone. That's why we have this great big neutral ground here. But they built it so they could at least shop in each other's territory.
Keith and I walked up here one day, and it was really nice shops. We also loved looking at all the architecture.
He's Lemoyne, Sieur de Bienville, our first governor. Look to your left, Tujague's fabulous restaurant. Look at their gallery. You see that? That's a French gallery. It's made out of wood. There's a balcony on the left. There's a balcony, and there's a gallery. Balconies have no support under them.
Since balconies have no support, I vote for gallery. How about you?
There's the Pontalba Apartments, first apartments in the United States, and they were built by a woman. They were built by the Michaela Almonaster Pontalba. That's quite a name, huh? Cathedral. St. Louis was the King of France, and this one is for the United States. It's one of the most important in the United States. It is a minor basilica. If you look to your left, you will see the Cabildo. That was the Spanish seat of government where we signed part of the Louisiana Purchase. Statue of St. Joan of Arc, the Maid of Orleans. There's one exactly like her in Paris. And she was given to us by the city of France, Paris, France. And we lovingly refer to her as Joni on her pony. So this is all the French market, y'all. Now, growing up, oh man, this was my Disneyland. We would come here as kids in the middle of the night with our grandparents. That's when they'd shop. All this was open. All this was ships. And the vendors would just yell at you, come taste this, come taste that. Oh my gosh, it was so wonderful. I want to tell you now, we're still on the sliver by the river. The day of Katrina and weeks after, all of this was still dry. No water here. The water was back in the lower ninth. The upper ninth is up here, but the lower ninth, that's where the levee broke. And everything, oh my gosh, it was just totally washed away. This is where the Creoles lived. To your right is Tremé. It was a beautiful plantation that was owned by a gentleman by the name of Claude Tremé. But the Creoles lived here, or they had their own Creole dialect. Look at these homes. They were all built for the weather. The wealthy Creoles came here in the winter. They wanted to be entertained. They had Christmas, they had Mardi Gras, they had Halloween, they had all of their balls were here in the beautiful esplanade in these homes that were built for the weather. Now, they're all built up. They all have long, skinny, narrow windows we call guillotine windows. They all have dormer windows at the top in the attics to let out the hot air. Shutters were wonderful, not just for wind, but for the heat, for the rain, for everything, for cold. You keep those shutters closed and your house can have a 5-degree temperature change either way. Also, this is still Treme. This is what we feel has ruined the Treme. This Interstate 10. And you had young people like Louis Armstrong, Buddy Bolton, Jelly Roll Martin, Scott Joplin, Kid Ory. All these were young prodigies. Look at these homes, how beautiful. And how they're made for the weather, the ventilation, the cross ventilation and all of them. Very, very smart back then. Colors, because the Creoles come from the word Creolo, which means color. This to your left was the Edgar Degas house. The French Impressionist painter Edgar Degas actually lived here. A lot of these homes are owned by artists. We have some beautiful museums here, schools. Look at all these beautiful live oak trees. The brown stuff on the oak trees, fuzzy stuff, is called resurrection or Lazarus fern. It's been brown, but if we have a 1-hour rain, it is going to be just as green and lush as if it was in a tropical rainforest.
We thoroughly enjoyed all the information the tour guide and tour director gave us as we drove through New Orleans.
Oh my goodness, forever, peristyle we call it. Weddings, we have weddings there, parties there. But it was, children just absolutely love it here.
Wouldn't this gazebo be a fabulous place to have a wedding? And we stopped by the Café du Monde briefly to use the restrooms on our way to a tour.
Comparison of the Cajuns versus the Creoles, because they were two totally different kinds of people. The Creoles were very, very, like I said, socialites and money and very, very, we always call them petite foods because they love to be fancy and they love to be with their handkerchiefs and they were just lovely people.
One day, the bus dropped us off in this little neighborhood and came back to pick us up an hour or two later. We got to roam around and we found this little cafe, which was so nice. The pastries and desserts here was out of this world delicious. We stopped in another restaurant prior to coming here, but there wasn't any room for seating. We are so glad we walked across the street and found this quaint little cafe.
Thank you.
If you know me, you know how I love chocolate, and this did not disappoint. Keith got the chocolate torte. I have to say that their pasta salad was underwhelming, but their chicken salad was very delicious.
So that's why it was all, and then when they closed in the 1970s, they, Loyola took over the building. So, Americans, when they got here, as we're going down the street, you're going to see a lot of different denominations of different faiths, because that was allowed during the American period. That was not allowed during the French and Spanish period. You had to be Catholic. On the right-hand side is Audubon Park, which is a beautiful park. There's a lot of trails to walk around. On the left-hand side, this first building with the white columns, that building, that home is the home of the chancellor, the president of Tulane University. That was donated to Tulane. That whole neighborhood just there on the left is a very private neighborhood. You can't even walk down a sidewalk unless your name is on the list as a guest. Behind the park on the right is the Audubon Zoo, which is fantastic. Just here on the left is Tulane University. This started off as a doctor's college. They considered the Ivy League of the South. Now, the second you pass the stone beige buildings and you get to the brown brick, it goes from Tulane University to Loyola University. This is a Catholic university run by the Jesuits. Now, most of these properties have been subdivided, and that's when you get the houses next to each other. So this is not how it would have initially looked. There would have been a lot more lush gardens, and the homes would have been a little bit bigger. These are not the original homes because of the fact that it's subdivided. And if you notice also, there's not any real rhyme and reason to the architecture. In the French Quarter and in the Creole areas, the architecture was very much regulated by building code. Here, you could go traveling and you could decide, oh, I really love, the Italian villas, or I really love this Gothic architecture in Eastern Europe, or I really like anything, and you can come back and combine it all into one home. It's one of our local public libraries. I promise you, this is the fanciest library you've seen, probably outside of New York library. So this was someone's home, and what it was is that their only child died in World War II. So they put it in their will that when they passed away, that building will be donated to the city as long as it was made a public library. And so this is the neighborhood that we have a lot of Hollywood stars live here. John Goodman actually married a woman from Louisiana in the 80s, so his permanent home is in this neighborhood. We have Sandra Bullock, we have Matthew McConaughey, we have Jennifer Coolidge, Jessica Langley is here also. And so and they come here because we don't bother them. Like, we don't stalk the Hollywood stars here. They're not going to walk outside of your house and get paparazzi flashing pictures in front of your face. When Brad Pitt and Angelina lives here, they had a house in the French Quarter. You can see all the beads still in the trees right now. Typically, there will be many more beads hanging, but because we had such record-breaking heat this summer, and like Cheryl mentioned earlier, we've been having a lot of trees dying because of the heat. A crew came through and removed a lot of the beads from the trees so that they wouldn't have that added weight on the branches because of the drought that was going on. So that is why there's very few beads left. So coming up on the right-hand side is a tree that you can see plenty of crepe myrtle with a lot of beads on it. It looks very festive.
We were surprised with all the homeless encampments, but I guess that's typical in the cities these days. If you would like to see more of our New Orleans videos, click the video that just popped up on your screen.